Tattoo artists of Reddit, what's the most beautiful saddest request you've ever gotten, or one that has stood out? My sis is an artist. She had a client she really liked, did some good portraiture work on. The client was out at dinner one night when she suddenly got a headache and died on the spot from a brain aneurysm, leaving behind her young son. My sister did a charity event to raise money for her family and tattooed dozens of red balloons in her memory. I'm still really proud of her for doing that. I still recall that afternoon. The pain of loss. The red balloon. The shape of love. For all to see. A piece of her. A part of me. My partner pro bono's tattooed nipples on women's reconstructed breasts. She is a cosmetic tattooist, and post-operative breast cancer patients are referred to her. They often cry when they see themselves after the procedure. They say that it is feeling whole again after so much trauma. My sister-in-law got a tattoo of an owl and had my brother's ashes mixed with ink for the owl's eyes. My brother had very vibrant and striking blue eyes, and the owl has the same shade of blue eyes. When my little brother died, I asked my tattoo artist for a memorial tattoo for him, a calico cat, me, and an angelic corgi, him. Corgis were his favorite thing in the entire world, playing around an anchor. He was in the Navy for years. It was personal to me and he did a lovely job. We both cried when he finished and I was checking it out in the mirror and he gave me a really big hug. XGF is a tattoo artist. She came home way late from work one night. Two British dudes, drunk off their ass, came into the shop a few minutes before the shop was going to close. They wanted to get tattooed right then, right there. My ex, she wasn't really having it until they explained the situation. They were in the States, doing a cross-country road trip that they had been planning for years. There was another buddy that was going to be with them, but he passed away a few months beforehand. So they wanted to get a poorly done tattoo of his face because all of the dead buddies' tattoos were really bad on each of their arse cheeks. So when they went to all these places that they had planned to see, they could show him. Well, the ex popped open some whiskey, threw on some metal, and started getting to it. The dudes were apparently utterly hilarious and had everyone in tears from laughter the entire time. One of the tattoos she's most proud of, but the fact that it's so poorly done on purpose, she can't really have it in her book. My father-in-law had ashes from his dog put into the ink of his memorial tattoo. The artist is a member of the family, so they were able to accommodate his request. My best friend is a tattoo artist and a client walked in. He asked for a tattoo of his daughter's scar in the same area, so his daughter won't be self-conscious about it. Throughout the appointment, he talked about his daughter and how proud he was of her. Not a tattoo artist, but my father-in-law was tragically taken from us. He was run over by a speeding motorcycle. Our family was torn apart. The shit responsible was wealthy, well-connected, and didn't even get a ticket, suspended license, asked to take a defensive course. Never acknowledged, apologized. My father-in-law was an amazing and somewhat known artist. While going through his studio we found a sketch of the angel Gabriel, our son's name. My wife now has that exact sketch fit scale on her back. It is a beautiful homage and allows us to keep his memory with us. My mother-in-law is spending the weekend with us. They raised their families, and this was supposed to be their time together. Fuck people who walk through the world that way. Please slow down everyone and enjoy the times you have with your loved ones. Yeah, something similar happened here in the town I'm at. A few years ago a guy ran over about a dozen high school students, killing 2 and permanently crippling a couple more. He didn't pay any restitution due to him claiming to be poor, but got his mother to pay for a good enough lawyer that got him off with no prison time or requirement to pay anything to the families. Afterwards he used his mother's money to travel the world, went to Thailand, and claimed to have found enlightenment there. He now lives on a ranch and throws apple pressing parties. 5 years ago I lost my dog, Snoopy, who was my best friend for almost 17 years. Here is the very first picture of us together, and here is the last a couple of days before he passed. As you can probably tell from those pictures, he meant so much to me, so it was a very painful loss. One night shortly after he died I got drunk and decided I wanted a tattoo of a caricature of him to remember him by. I asked my room best human friend to draw it on my right forearm since I am right-handed and it was hard for me to do. Well, it was even harder to try and tattoo myself with my non-dominant hand, and the result was a very sloppy tattoo. Even though it looks so bad, it's my most cherished tattoo because it's such a raw expression of emotion. Whenever I miss him, I look down at that goofy face on my arm and remember all the happiness that he brought me and all the great memories we made together. I've considered getting it professionally touched up, but I would want it to be exactly the same, just bolder, because it means so much to me just the way it is. I'm hoping if I do, the artist can appreciate that and not think it's weird or something. Not an artist, but I have several tattoos. The one that means the most to me is 3X on my ankle. When I did my driving tests, I failed a few times due to failure anxiety. One day my father decided to write me a note telling me he believed in me, that I shouldn't let it get to my head, and that I should look at it as if it was a driving lesson, not a test. He'd be in a meeting afterwards, so I should text him my results. He closed the letter with 3 kisses, XXX. Now I'm highly superstitious, so I put that note in my pocket and went on to my driving test. And I passed. From that moment on, every time something important was about to happen, I'd put that note in my pocket. Unfortunately, it went through the washing machine and I lost the note, but I had a photo of it in my phone. I reckoned I was less likely to lose my ankle than a piece of paper, so I got the 3X tattooed in my ankle in honor of my dad. He's still alive, but it's my most valuable tattoo. I'm not an artist, but I love everything about tattooing. I call it my ink therapy. I just want to share this with you because it's my favorite tat, even though it's so simple. I have an old school style diamond with purple banner across it on my right chest bearing the name Lurline, about the size of an average adult fist. Lurline was my adopted grandmother on the mother's side. Her daughter that adopted me had been a foster mother named Donna. Lurline was a Southern Belle type from a small TOWN think single gravel road alongside a railroad track in rural southern Illinois. When she met Roy Friday White, he said, "Stick with me, babe, and I'll give you diamonds the size of road apples." She married Roy and bore him 2 daughters, Donna and Sharon. It turned out Roy had a bit of a gambling problem, and Lurline's last straw was when Roy pawned her wedding ring for gambling money. She left him and took her daughters and moved back to her small town in rural Illinois. Now she did this in the 1950s, and that was a time when you did not leave your husband. At all. She raised her daughters alone, never remarried, and eventually her daughter Donna became a teacher, then a foster parent, and later adopted me. Roy moved to Las Vegas and worked for Bugsy Siegel himself, wore expensive, brightly colored leisure suits, and was known to have a 17 handicap in golf. Eventually Lurline retired, and as she grew older, she eventually moved in with mom and was quite the wicked awesome little old lady. She eventually passed of plain old age just after her 98th birthday. I took it rather hard, as she was the only grandmother I had ever known. So I dealt with it in the best way I knew how. I got a tattoo. I got her a diamond the size of a road apple. Guy came in, he had one leg, so I thought he was interesting. He wanted a tattoo on his hand and asked if it was okay to tattoo it since he had recently broken his hand. I said it was fine as long as it was healed up. I asked out of curiosity how he broke his hand and he said, "I punched my dog." I got him to fill out the form with his name and address and asked casually where the dog was, and he just said gone now. Told him I was sorry that I couldn't do his tattoo and then turned his shit into the cops. I should have just taken his other leg. Fucker. Sadly, I'm yet another non-tattoo artist, but one of my favorite co-workers had medical problems as a young child and ended up adopting a cat sharing the same problems. I don't remember the name, sorry, but it was heart-related. The cat grew up with her and died about 2 years ago, so she got a cat chasing a bell, their favorite toy, with a heart to the side saying, "You can't stop me." It made me very sad, and it was a very pretty tattoo. Not a tattoo artist myself, but a friend told me of a guy who wanted to be tattooed in his own blood of a girl kind of like this. It was the first time a client had requested for something like that, and he was confused. Curious, he asked him more. Turned out, she was a cam girl and they were in a long-distance relationship virtually. It was after almost 5 years he came to know she had passed away from a freak accident. And they never got to meet each other, sadly. Not a tattoo artist, but I heard a story of someone who was getting a butterfly tattoo on his wrist picture, but had this tattoo on it, and one of them in the same place. Big dude, he had like tattoos all over his body, so the tattoo artist was a little confused as to why he was getting a small butterfly on his wrist. When asked about it, he got all defensive and just said just do it. Afterwards, while he was paying, he broke down and told the tattoo artist that this was the last tattoo his daughter had gotten with him before she died in a car crash. Tattoo artist here. I just want to chime in and say this, tattoos are a powerful tool for healing, for sure. But we aren't therapists. I get to know a lot of my clients over the years, and we tell each other about our traumas and become good friends over time. But holy shit, do not use your tattooist as a therapist, especially on the first appointment or through a long oversharing email. I care about my clients, but I am not prepared emotionally for them to blast me with their trauma right out of the gate. Graphic details of death, loss, abuse, assault. Buddy, I just met you. I have no training to be able to handle this internally, nor to help you in the way that a professional can. Oftentimes therapy costs about as much as a tattoo, and while it's less cool, it might be more helpful in the long run. Not a tattoo artist, but my partner is. One of his clients committed suicide just after lockdown. A month before she died, he'd done a beautiful chest piece for her. Her uncle recently got in touch and is wanting the same piece rip. My dad has 2 tattoos, one on each arm. They're matching hearts with a ribbon thing across them, vaguely like this. One has mom written on the band, the other has a crisscross pattern on the band. As you may have guessed, the crisscross one used to have the name of his childhood sweetheart before she dumped him, something that happens to many a poor soul. Funny thing is though, 5 years ago, they randomly bumped into each other and ended up back together. They live together now and who knows, maybe they'll even get married. I was in a car accident and lost my brother. Got a portrait of him done on my arm. It's a pretty tragic story that I told to the artist. When he was done, he gave me a minute alone in a tiny studio surrounded by others getting work done. I spent a few minutes bawling my eyes out. I kinda felt bad for everyone around having to see that. He cut me a deal, which I didn't ask for or want. I have lots of tats, this one is obviously my favorite. It's an amazing piece and very well done. A young woman came in wanting a belly button tattoo. When I asked what she wanted in her belly button, she said, "I don't have a belly button, I want you to tattoo one on me." She was born with malfunctioning organs, and as a newborn the doctors had cut her open from sternum to tailbone in order to remove said organs and then stitched her back up, leaving 2 small holes in her side for waste. She was perfectly sealed up apart from those 2 holes. After I had tattooed a dainty little gray and pink navel, she got up to have a look, tears welled in her eyes, and then she did a little dance as she squeaked, "I've never felt closer to my mother." The shop got a little dustier that day. That was just about the best feeling I've ever had after completing a tattoo. One that was really touching for me was a girl whose dad had passed away. She brought in the last note he had written to her, and I tattooed the love you sign off on her. I'll always remember that one. Not a tattoo artist, but I want to get a dandelion on my chest when I'm old enough. My aunt died from breast cancer about 4 years ago now, and all I remember is her laughing and smiling the whole way through. She loved her 3rd boob and didn't wear a wig when she didn't need to. She didn't see the point in hiding her head. I hope you're laughing up there with your family, Michelle. Not a tattoo artist, but the first time I went to get a tattoo, I told the guy I wanted the quote, "You have to trust someone to be betrayed." I never did. On my forearm. Oddly enough, he knew exactly what that reference was from, and while he did my tattoo, we had the longest conversation about how we discovered the game. Yes, the quote is from a game, there's your hint, what we thought about the series, and what we thought about this year's edition of the game. Great guy, and the tattoo was perfect, and he told me that it was easily the best request he's gotten in a long time. Derek, if you're reading this, thank you. I was an apprentice and I sold custom drawings at the same time. I once had a woman who wanted a rainbow heart that looked like shattered glass. She then explained me that it was in memory of her daughter, who died from a car crash. The day of her death, she came out to her mom as a lesbian. Her mom didn't react well, and the daughter went for a drive to vent a little. That drive is the one who killed her. I could tell through the mails how devastated her mom was and how guilty she felt. It really broke my heart. My oldest ever client. She was 76 and had just received a bad diagnosis, so had come in with her son to cross off, get a tattoo from her bucket list. She wanted a blue dragonfly on her collarbone, but couldn't stand upright and steady for long, so, with the help of her son, I had to lay her down on the bed to apply the stencil. Wherever possible, you should always apply a stencil with a client standing naturally, so that the design isn't distorted when gravity shifts their body. She laughed hysterically when she stood up to check the stencil placement, and it shifted from her shoulder and disappeared into her cleavage. We had a great time during the tattoo. The three of us laughed and joked. She had a great sense of humor and was really positive despite her grim diagnosis. 2.5 years later, she returned to the tattoo shop, now 78. Far less energetic this time, she asked me to add her son's name beneath the blue dragonfly. He had suddenly fallen sick and passed away before her. A few weeks ago, some woman came in asking to have a picture of her fiancé's late wife's face tattooed on her. I thought it was weird, but to be honest, I need the portrait practice, so I gave it my best shot. Not an artist, but I'm heavily tattooed, and after every tattoo appointment my young son asked me when I got home if I got a raccoon tattoo. He has a stuffed raccoon that he loves. I got a hold of one of my artists who I knew would be down with it and scheduled an appointment. My son and wife and I went to the shop where I got a small realistic portrait of his raccoon. The special part about it is that my artist allowed my 5-year-old to help tattoo his favorite stuffy on me. Out of all of my tattoos, this little beat-up raccoon stuffy tattoo is my favorite.
So thanks for watching, everyone. Hit that subscribe button and also the notification bell to be notified every time we upload a new video with a Reddit hot topic. See you in the next episode. Peace.